Today we're going to talk about ellipsis marks and brackets. We're going to start with ellipsis marks. Sometimes they're called ellipsis points, and when you write them or type them, you use 3 spaced dots. Ellipsis marks are used to show omissions in words and quoted text. So I have here Psalm 103 through 4, and it says this: Know ye that the Lord, He is good. It is He that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are His people, and the sheep of His pastures. Enter into His gates with thanksgiving, and into His courts with praise. Be thankful unto Him, and bless His name. Psalm 103 and 4. And so if we were to need to use this in our writing, perhaps we would only want to quote this part right here that I have highlighted in pink. And so it would look like this. We would need to show that we were omitting some of the original text. And so it would read, Know ye that we are His people and the sheep of His pastures. This is a very effective way to write, to find the most valuable information for your purpose. And this way you are not in your own papers. I'm thinking of your argumentative papers. You're not quoting 3, 4, 5 lines of what an author says. You're finding the most valuable information to communicate the point that you have. Here's another example of what you might need to do. Quoting multiple sentences with omission, this is what you need to do. So in the last example, we made a new sentence basically with pieces of the verses. In this one, we're actually going to quote 2 complete sentences or independent clauses. Know ye that the Lord, He is good. That is an independent clause all by itself. And then be thankful unto Him and bless His name. So there's just something slightly different when you piece it together this way. And that is that you have to add the ellipsis points, but then you also need an additional point to be a period. Okay, the sentences, of course, would have to be a complete thought for you to need to do this. The second sentence would need to be capitalized. So it would look like this. Know ye that the Lord, He is good. Here's the part that we omitted, and here's a period because that's an independent clause. And then capital B, thankful unto Him and bless His name. So that's what that looks like. That's what that 4th period would be about. Now, in your book, you can refer to this in page 335. There is another rule included where you use a full line of spaced dots to indicate the omission of 1 or more lines of poetry when the poetry is formatted in stanzas. So if that ever is something that you do in a paper moving forward, you can refer to page 335. I mean, you really, while you're looking here, you should refer quickly to that page and see what that would look like in the example. But let's move back into ellipsis marks for our purposes. Use ellipsis to indicate halted or unfinished speech. So here's an example of that. The young child began his part in the program. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Oh, I can't remember the next. And that's what you would do, especially if you were doing a narrative or story. You would possibly need to show that somebody is faltering in his speech, pausing, and then maybe somebody's trailing off and not finishing his sentence. And that shows that there's that 4th period right there, because that ends the sentence in the quote for this writer. I also put the single quotes in green here so that I did not forget to let you see another example of that, because the regular quotation marks enclose all that the child says, but he is quoting from scripture, and so we need to have single quotes there. That's what that would look like. All right, next we're going to talk about brackets. Brackets are used to show insertions or replacements inside quotations. Brackets are almost just you, the author, communicating with your reader about your quotation sometimes, just any kind of specific information that your reader needs to understand about what you quoted, because your reader isn't necessarily going to go and actually go to your each and every source and look. And so you need to be really honest about making sure that your source, that you quote from your source completely accurately. And if there are any kind of changes or deviations in your transfer of the information into a direct quotation, you need to note that as the writer and communicate that with your reader. I hope that makes sense. Maybe as we move on, it will. So brackets, by the way, can't be used interchangeably with parentheses. So what you know about parentheses does not hold true to brackets. I already said they indicate an addition to quotations or a change to quotations. So let's just look at a few examples. There are other examples in your book that you can look at, but here are just a few simple ones. 4score and 7, today we'd say 87 years ago, and then this would go on, this quote. So often this is the case. It's used for clarification, but these are obviously not the original speaker's words. This is someone quoting from Lincoln. Another example, Bill shook hands with his son Al. Okay, and so the writer needed to clarify who Al was when quoting Bill shook hands with Al. Okay. Use brackets to, okay.